Every few years, Batman casting discourse explodes. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's chaotic, and sometimes it's revealing. Brandon Sklenar isn't trending because he looks good in a cowl or because he's the new flavor of the week. Pause. He's trending because fans are subconsciously reacting to a Batman shaped void in the upcoming DCU. Sklenar fits a very specific set of criteria that people feel is missing from the modern cinematic landscape. So this isn't really about popularity. When it comes to Brandon Sklenar, it's all about the vibe, the presence in there. And now, I am not a Brandon Sklenar glazer like all these other people on the internet. I'm kind of in the middle. I don't, I think he could be a good Batman, but I don't really. But if he isn't Batman, I wouldn't care. But what I've done is I have made a video taking a bunch of the notes and reasons and did a bunch of research on people that do like Brandon Sklenar, like Kay, and people like that. And I compiled all of their stuff and put it into a video because I want to tell you guys why people want Brandon Sklenar to play Batman and why people view Brandon Sklenar as the missing piece. So I'm going to talk in this video like I am pro Brandon, which is I'm not against him. You know what I mean? I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't really care. But I want to tell you why a lot of fans want Brandon Sklenar to be Batman because this isn't just a dumb fan casting. People have valid reasons. So let's get into it. This is Stevie. This is the Loreverse. And as we do, we're going to dive deep into this. So James Gunn's DCU is really in a tricky spot. He isn't replacing Christian Bale's mythic tactician, right? Ben Affleck's brutal war veteran or Robert Pattinson's noir detective. He's looking for a Batman who can exist long term in a shared universe and lead a massive bat family and also stand next to literal gods like Superman and Green Lantern while without feeling like a mere mortal. And this is an incredibly hard needle to thread. You need someone who feels human enough to bleed, but mythic enough to command a room full of aliens. And that is where Brandon Sklenar comes in. And if you've seen Sklenar in 1923, you know his biggest strength isn't really loudness, but it's this like the best way to say it is like a contained gravity. He plays men who speak softly but hold an immense amount of tension in their eyes. And this to me is like prime Bruce Wayne type of energy because Batman shouldn't feel explosive 24/7. He should feel dangerously calm. And Brandon Sklenar reads like a man who is always thinking two moves ahead, looking like he carries decades of history without ever announcing it. And he doesn't really need to bark to be the most dangerous person in the room. Now, this is crucial as well because fans are done with the early years of Batman. We don't want to see, the pearls hit the pavement again. We don't want the training montages of the year or the year 1 or even year 2 at that mistakes. The DCU needs a Batman who already has the scars, the rules, and the regrets. And Brandon Sklenar has a lived-in quality to his performance, right? He doesn't look green, but he doesn't look like a retiree either. He sits in the perfect veteran sweet spot, experienced enough to have a history, but young enough to last in a decade-long franchise. Now, the DCU is also confirmed to be skipping straight to Brave and the Bold, which means Damian Wayne is in the picture. And for Batman, this does change everything because now we're going to see Batman that has to be authoritative but emotionally reserved, a mentor who struggles with warmth, and a father who treats parenting like a mission. And Brandon Sklenar excels at being a reluctant leader from what we've seen in his past performances. He feels like, the kind of man who doesn't want to be responsible for others, but does it because it's the right thing to do. And that really is Bruce Wayne's core struggle once the Bat family starts to grow. And here's something that fans are reacting to also is that Brandon Sklenar isn't a bulk bro. He doesn't look like a bodybuilder. He looks very functional for his size. Pause. Look, modern comic Batman is a tactician and a predator, not a prize fighter, right? Brandon Sklenar has a athletic, realistic build that suggests he could fight for 6 hours straight and then vanish into the night. And it's really about the predator aesthetic over the tank aesthetic, which Ben Affleck had more of a tank aesthetic where he just looked kind of fat. Now, James Gunn's DCU is leaning into emotional sincerity and like earnest storytelling. Brandon Sklenar has a rare ability to be sincere without being cheesy. He feels kind of grounded and serious, which is exactly was exactly what you need when Batman has to stand next to a guy in a bright red and blue suit who can fly. He wouldn't get swallowed by the spectacle of the Justice League. He'd provide really necessary friction. And look, fans And I think the biggest part here is that fans are tired of the celebrity Batman. They don't want to see a movie star playing dress up. They want to forget who was under the mask. And Brandon Sklenar feels like a high level character actor with leading man presence. He's someone I think audiences can project the myth of Batman onto without the badger of a meta casting choice. He looks like Bruce Wayne. He looks like a Bruce Wayne who actually hates attention, which makes the Playboy act feel more authentic. Now, Batman lives or dies also by his voice. Not a throat cancer gravel, but kind of like but authority. And Brandon Sklenar's natural cadence is very low, measured, and controlled. It's a voice that doesn't need to shout to get results, and it's just a man who has mastered his own fear and uses that mastery to command others. And I'm more than sure they're also maybe going to bring back the vocal coder that we saw Ben Affleck use in BVS, which I thought was also freaking terrifying and awesome. Now, because the DCU is introducing Robin and likely Nightwing and Batgirl, Batman can now also be a loner, right? He has to be a commander, and Brandon Sklenar's energy works for Batman who loves deeply but shows it poorly. The in that specific art, right? Learning empathy through being responsible of a son that requires really a performer who can do that with very little dialogue. And look, fans loved the detective angle of the Robert Pattinson movie, and look, I love it. I rewatch the movie all the time. But the DC Batman can't stay in the rainy shadows forever. He has to go to space. He has to fight gods. And Brandon Sklenar can do the noir introspection without being locked in misery. He can transition from the dark alleys of Gotham to the Watchtower in orbit without it feeling like a different character. And look, the reality is, psychologically, fans aren't just saying Brendan Sklenar is Batman. They're saying this is what Batman should feel like now. He represents, stability, really someone who won't leave after one movie because he isn't a big movie star, which means that he's going to be hungry, similar to what we've seen in David Cornsweet. Also, longevity. He's someone in his late 30s, early 40s who can age with the universe, and also quiet authority. I think Batman leads by example, not by ego. And I think that Brandon Sklenar has shown that in his past performance. Now, Brandon Sklenar isn't trending because of marketing hype. He's trending because he fits the profile of a Batman who has already been broken, is still standing, and now ready to teach the next generation how not to become like him. And the DCU doesn't need another symbol of fear. It needs a symbol of endurance. Whether or not Brandon Sklenar ever puts on the cowl, the fact that fans are gravitating toward him tells us exactly what kind of Dark Knight we're ready to see. We want a veteran, and we want a tactician, and we want the father. And look, it's funny because Brandon Sklenar's Batman is legit holding the fandom together, and he's not even cast. And I wonder if James Gunn is, watching these things, and Brandon Sklenar has hinted that they're impossible conversation. So we'll just have to see what happens, man. But I think if Brandon does become Batman, I think a lot of fans will be excited, and I think that's what we need, man. I think we need a Batman announcement soon. But I would love to hear what you guys think. Could you guys see Brandon as Batman? I told you guys I'm kind of in the middle. I wouldn't mind it. But if it was someone else, I wouldn't be mad. So we'll love to hear what you guys think, though. Please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, and peace out.